Hello, and welcome to 2-Minute Talk Tips. I'm Bill Monroe. This week's tip, keep tissues nearby while speaking. Those human body spars can be so unreliable and choose to do things at the most inopportune times. Imagine you are standing in front of the room in the middle of your presentation when suddenly you start to feel that tickle in the upper reaches of your nasal cavity. You know it's coming. You know you're about to sneeze, and you have to make a quick decision or a gamble. Is this going to be just a loud one, or is it going to be more productive? The question you really need to focus on is, do you have tissue handy to address the situation? Because with tissues nearby, it's really no worry, no big deal. You can simply say to your audience, excuse me, and then you can turn to the side, take care of business, and then keep on going. This is also great for situations where you find yourself perspiring more than you expected. Some might think that it's unprofessional to use the tissue to wipe sweat from your brow while speaking, but it's definitely a lot more professional to do that than to drip all over your podium. Look, things happen. We get colds, suffer from allergies, experience very dusty environments. We could be in a weird room. We could be dealing with very hot lights or a last-minute rush to set up or failing or inadequate air conditioning. There are lots of things that can happen that can cause our bodies to produce unfortunate substances at unfortunate times. With tissue handy, however, it's a lot less stressful, distracting, and embarrassing. Stick around, and after the break, we're going to talk about some business lessons we can learn from Star Wars. Welcome back. This episode's going to be a little bit different. I'm sort of going to drift away a little bit from the idea of just pure public speaking, although anytime we're talking about communication and leadership decisions, it's all relevant to communication and speaking. But today, I want to talk about some of the business lessons we can take from the recent Star Wars film. So let's talk about Star Wars and the concept of followership. Now, before we go any further, let me warn you that if you have not yet seen Star Wars: The Force Awakens, this is going to be your spoiler alert. I will be talking about plot points in the movie and how those plot points evolved as the movie went on. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, and you still do want to see it, and you want to see it without knowing how it ends, you should probably stop listening to this episode right now. If you choose to listen on, consider yourself forewarned. A lot of career and professional advice talks about the importance of leadership and understanding what leadership is. You can find discussions about the nature of leadership all over LinkedIn or all over the business blogs that you follow or all throughout the business books section at your local library or bookstore or any number of other places. These authors and producers and writers encourage us to lead courageously, to lead when we don't have authority, to lead without relying on any role power that we have, to lead emotionally, to lead by managing our relationships with people, to lead by challenging principles and challenging the status quo. And a lot of the talk that's out there will go ahead and deride managers for not being leaders. We see the question pop up, are you a leader or are you just a manager? Sometimes, though, what we need are managers, and what leaders need are followers. Look, leadership is great, and it is valuable to an organization, but leaders without followers are just random folks wandering around ranting at the wind. There is value in being a follower when that is called for, and followers ought to be celebrated a lot more than they are. In the corporate environment, I've found it's not uncommon to talk to folks or even to think myself that senior leadership is wrong or they're making a terrible mistake. And you'll hear all sorts of complaints around the proverbial water cooler or over a table in the break room as people wonder just what the heck is management doing? Don't they know what's going on? The thing is, though, is that often it's best to just trust them. See, I'm fond of saying and reminding myself whenever I hear a decision that makes no sense or that seems like the wrong one from senior leadership, that it must have made sense in some meeting that I was not a part of. You see, leadership often has more information at its disposal than the team that's executing will have. Leadership may also have different priorities in trying to balance different goals of an organization, often disparate goals and conflicting goals. And they may have to choose one side of an organization versus another. Leadership may have more parties to consider. They may have a bigger scope to consider. And even if a decision is negative for a particular division or part of an organization, it may be much better for the overall health of that organization. And quite frankly, most of the time, if you're a mid-level in the organization or if you're an individual contributor, you may simply not have access to all of that. It must have made sense in some meeting that I was not a part of. The thing is, if an organization is reasonably successful, we should give them the benefit of the doubt because that leadership team, if they're doing well, they must know something or be reasonably competent. Now, that doesn't mean we should always have blind faith in absolutely everything that they're doing or ignore significant ethical issues but the point is, there can be good reasons for what appear to be dumb decisions. And if you can't give leadership that leeway, if you can't give your senior leadership some trust when it comes to these things, then it seems like you have no faith in that organization, and you really ought to be job searching for a new organization as quickly as possible. So let's talk about how this played out in the recent Star Wars movie, in Star Wars The Force Awakens. And this, of course, is going to be your final spoiler alert. Poe Dameron is the top pilot in the Rebel Alliance. He is really good at his job. He is really good at laying down very tactical attack plans. And early on in the movie, we see this play out. And unfortunately, what we also see play out is that he has a tendency to reject leadership decisions because he thinks he knows better. Very early on, while leading an attack on an enemy battleship, he ignores General Organa's instructions to cancel that attack and to fall back. He is, of course, convinced that his team can still take down this huge vessel, that he can get a big win for the Rebel Alliance. But the problem is, Poe does not have the same big picture or long-term view that his supervisors, that General Organa and her staff have. And so he opts to ignore them. And he goes ahead and he completes that mission against orders. And yes, he does manage to destroy that ship, but in the process, he manages to lose all of the Rebel Alliance's bombers. Dozens of soldiers get killed. In fact, as a result of this ongoing attack, he nearly gets the entire leadership of the Rebel Alliance killed, including General Organa. And of course, it gets worse from there. As part of an escape plan, the senior leadership of the Rebel Alliance put in place a plan that would save the Alliance. They kept it secret for security reasons. They didn't share all the details, but it made sense in that meeting that Poe was not a part of. And folks in different parts of the organization didn't need to know the details of that plan in order for it to be successful. They just needed to trust the senior leadership. But Poe Dameron, he just assumed that he knew better. So what did he do? He launched a mutiny, which almost got more people killed in the process. And he put at risk the actual plan that would have allowed the rebels to regroup. Meanwhile, a couple of other characters, Finn and Rose, also assumed they knew better than senior leadership. They launched their own secret mission to bring back a codebreaker for their own plan. And they definitely got results. Problem was, their plan failed. Not only did their plan fail, but the codebreaker they brought back for the Rebel Alliance ended up going over to the enemy and cracked the rebel codes, which resulted in dozens more Rebel Alliance soldiers and personnel being killed. A whole bunch of rebel ships got destroyed. The secret backup base that the Rebel Alliance had been counting on was exposed as a result of this flawed mission, and it was destroyed, which led to even more deaths and a tremendous loss of resources for the Rebel Alliance. And that's all because Poe and Finn thought they knew better than the senior leadership. They didn't trust that General Organa had put things in place in the right way. They didn't trust that Admiral Holdo's plan made sense in a meeting they were not a part of. And that proved deadly for the Rebel Alliance. There may be legitimate reasons to distrust an organization's leadership. And if there are legitimate reasons to distrust it, leave the organization. And sometimes leadership may just be wrong, but most of the time, they're probably right. So when in doubt, think, this must have made sense in some meeting that I was not a part of. So that's it for this week. Kind of a short one. What business lessons do you take away from Star Wars? Go ahead and let us know in the comments for episode 47. Be sure to subscribe to 2 Minute Talk Tips in your favorite podcast app. And next time you speak, make sure you keep those tissues nearby. And ultimately, don't get best, get better. Thanks a lot. I'm Bill Monroe, and I'll see you next week.